She signed the marriage certificate the same way she signed business contracts, fast, clean, and without looking at you. Then she slid it across the table, stood up and said, "Let's get one thing straight. This is a transaction. Don't confuse it for anything else. You were married for exactly 4 minutes, and already she couldn't stand you." ACT 1. The deal. You didn't grow up with money. You grew up with a mother who worked double shifts, and a father who taught you that dignity isn't something you inherit. It's something you build, quietly, with your hands. So when your struggling architecture firm was acquired by Callaway Industries, you weren't celebrating. You were surviving. Her name was Natalie Callaway, 34, CEO of a $4.2 billion empire her grandfather built and her father nearly destroyed. She had rebuilt it herself, deal by deal, year by year, in boardrooms full of men who underestimated her exactly once. She did not smile in photographs. She did not do interviews. She did not explain herself. And she absolutely, categorically, did not want to get married. But the company's largest shareholder, her aging, infuriatingly traditional grandfather, had written a clause into the family trust. A clause that required her to be married before her 35th birthday or lose her controlling stake. It was archaic. It was insulting. It was also completely legal. She needed a husband, temporary, controllable, invisible. Her assistant presented her with 3 candidates. She rejected the first 2 within minutes. You she chose because your background check came back clean. You had no social media presence worth mentioning. And when she called you into her office and explained the situation with zero warmth, you didn't flinch, didn't flatter her, and didn't ask how much. You asked why she couldn't find someone who actually wanted this. She stared at you for a long moment. "You'll do," she said. "You should have walked out. You didn't. Your firm was 3 months from bankruptcy and you had 11 employees who trusted you, so you signed. That was your first mistake." Act 2. The rules. The rules were clear. You would move into her penthouse. You would attend required public appearances. You would not speak to the press. You would not interfere in her work. You would not, under any circumstances, develop feelings. She had her wing of the apartment. You had yours. There was a hallway between you that might as well have been a wall. The first week she spoke to you exactly 3 times, all logistical, schedule, appearances, expectations. She looked at you the way you look at furniture, present, functional, forgettable. The second week something small happened. You cooked dinner. Not for her. You just cooked, the way you always did when you needed to think. You made your mother's recipe. Simple. Nothing impressive. And you left a plate on the kitchen counter without saying anything. In the morning, the plate was empty. She never mentioned it. But the next evening, she came home and paused at the kitchen doorway for just a moment, long enough for you to notice, before walking to her office. You made dinner again. She ate it again. Neither of you said a word about it for 3 weeks. The public appearances were where things got complicated. In front of cameras, she was different. Not warmer, exactly, but present. She'd take your arm with practiced ease, stand close enough to be convincing, and occasionally say something quietly into your ear that was meant to look intimate, but was usually a reminder to stop squinting in photos. But one evening, at a charity gala, something went off script. Her grandfather cornered you while she was across the room. He was sharp-eyed and slow-moving, and he looked at you the way old men look at things they've been watching for a long time. "She laugh yet?" he asked. You said you weren't sure what he meant. With you, has she laughed, actually laughed, since you 2 got married? You thought about it honestly. "Not yet," you said. He nodded slowly. She used to laugh all the time, before she decided she had to be the hardest person in every room. He looked across the hall at her. She didn't choose that. She learned it. There's a difference. You watched her for the rest of the evening differently after that. the way she held her glass, the way she listened, really listened, when she thought no one was paying attention. The way, just once, when a child at the event tugged on her dress and held up a drawing, she crouched down without hesitation and studied it like it was something worth studying. She didn't see you watching. You didn't tell her you had. Act 4. The shift. It happened the night the acquisition fell through. You found her at midnight, still in her work clothes, sitting on the kitchen floor with her back against the cabinet and a glass of wine she hadn't touched. The composed, untouchable Natalie Calloway, on the floor. You didn't say anything. You just sat down beside her. She didn't tell you to leave. For a long time, neither of you spoke. Then she said, quietly, almost to herself, "I've been fighting for this company since I was 26, every single day, and some days I can't remember why." You thought about it carefully before you answered. "Maybe that's not the problem," you said. "Maybe the problem is you've been fighting alone so long. You've forgotten what it feels like to just not." She turned and looked at you, really looked at you, for the first time. "You're not what I expected," she said. "You didn't expect anything," you replied. "That's different." She almost smiled. It was the closest thing you'd seen. You sat there on the kitchen floor until 2 in the morning. She talked. You listened. Not the way people listen when they're waiting to speak. Actually listened. And somewhere in that quiet, the wall between you developed a crack neither of you acknowledged out loud. Act 5. The almost. The cracks kept coming. She started leaving her office door open when she worked late. You started leaving coffee outside it without knocking. She began asking your opinion on things, not because she needed it, but you slowly realized, because she wanted to know how you thought. You were careful. You remembered the rules. You reminded yourself, repeatedly, that this was temporary, that she was brilliant and complicated and completely out of reach and had never once asked you to feel anything. But then came the evening she walked into your wing of the apartment, for the first time, ever, and sat on the edge of your drafting table and picked up a sketch you'd been working on. "This is good," she said, and she didn't say things she didn't mean. "You sound surprised," you said. "I did your background check, not your talent check." She set the sketch down. "I think I owe you an apology." You waited. "I chose you because I thought you'd be easy to manage. I treated you like a variable in an equation." She looked at you steadily. "You're not." The space between you in that moment was very small. "Natalie?" "Don't," she said, not coldly, almost carefully, like she was protecting something fragile she hadn't admitted existed yet. "Not yet." You nodded. You gave her the space. That night, lying awake, you understood something clearly. You were no longer doing this for your firm. You hadn't been for a while. Act 6. The truth. The grandfather's birthday dinner was where everything broke open. He gave a toast, simple, unscripted. He talked about his wife, gone 15 years, and how the only thing he'd ever built that actually mattered was a family. He looked at Natalie when he said it. Then he looked at you. "I wrote that clause," he said quietly to the table, "not because I needed her to be married, because I needed her to let someone in. Just one person. That's all." Natalie stared at her plate. On the drive home, she didn't speak for a long time. Then, "Did you know? Before you signed, did someone tell you what this was really about?" "No," you said. "If you had known, that it wasn't really about the trust, that it was just him trying to—" She stopped. "Would you still have signed?" You thought about it honestly, about the 11 people at your firm, about the morning you found an empty plate, about a kitchen floor at midnight and a woman who forgot how to not fight alone. "Probably not for the same reasons," you said. "But yeah, I think I still would have." She looked out the window for a long time. When you got home, she stopped in the hallway between your wings, that hallway that had always been a wall, and turned to face you. "I don't know how to do this," she said. "Whatever this is, I don't know how to be less." "You don't have to be less," you said. "You just have to let someone be there." She stood very still. Then she took one step forward, closed the distance, and for the first time, Natalie Calloway let someone hold her. Not for cameras, not for contracts, just because she was tired and you were there, and somewhere along the way, without either of you planning it, this had become real. 6 months later, her grandfather's birthday clause expired. The marriage, legally, could have ended. The paperwork was ready. All it required was a signature. She slid it across the table to you. You looked at it for a moment. Then you looked at her. "I'm not signing this," you said. She raised an eyebrow. For a second, she almost looked like she was going to argue. Instead, she took the papers, folded them once, and dropped them in the trash. "Good," she said. "Dinner's getting cold." You followed her to the kitchen, her kitchen, your kitchen, the kitchen where this whole impossible thing had quietly begun. And for the first time since you'd met her, Natalie Calloway laughed, actually laughed. And it turned out it was worth every single difficult, complicated, contract signed second to hear it.